Hi, I'm Sheldon Clare. I'm the president of Canada's National Firearms Association, and I thought I'd take a few moments to discuss with you NFA goals for immediate firearms legislation reform. Our overarching long-term goal is to completely repeal the former bills C-17 and C-68, C-71, the May 1st Order in Council, and Bill C-21. These are collectively known as the Firearms Act. This would include scrapping the entire firearms registry, getting rid of firearms licenses, and destroying all the records. There are a number of specific actions that can be taken to move towards that goal, and I will go through them. In general, these include replacing the licensing and registration provisions with the point of purchase instant criminal record check for firearm. This system would keep lawful access to firearms away from criminal elements by making use of a practical list of people who should not have firearms, rather than by trying to make lists of those who may. Successive gun control legislation has been sweeping and dramatic, and removing it will likewise need both incremental and sweeping change. So here are these 10 points that I want to go through with you that describe what needs to be done. Number one, eliminate firearms licenses and the requirement to take any sort of course to own one's property. Absent-minded firearms owners are not a threat to public safety. Number two, eliminate the automatic check of legal firearms owners when a person is stopped for a traffic offense and replace it with an instant check of criminal, parole, probation records. Hunters, target shooters, and private owners of firearms are not a threat to public safety. Number three, renounce the agreement to implement the United Nations marking regulations. This is Firearms Marking Regulation SOR 2004-275, which was passed in 2004. Firearms are already well marked. Thank you very much. Number four, curtail the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's attempts to unilaterally reclassify firearms. The reclassification of firearms needs to go completely. Number five, end prohibitions on magazine capacity. This law deters no one of ill intent from misuse of firearms or accessories for ill acts, nor does this limit their ability to cause damage. Number six, restore handgun hunting as a legitimate use of handguns, as it was for many years in Canada and is still in effect in countries around the world. Handguns are perfectly useful for hunting activities and are also useful for a good safety tool when hunting, especially for bow hunters. Number seven, consider sound suppressors as the safety equipment that they are in many countries and permit their widespread and legal use. A lot of complaints about ranges deal with noise, and the use of sound suppressors may well be an effective way to counter or at least minimize some of the noise associated with firearms ranges. They don't eliminate noise. They just help to reduce the effect on people's hearing. Number eight, eliminate punitive safe storage and transport requirements that have caused so much grief to firearm owners in the absence of any wrongdoing. Storage is a matter for education. It should not be a criminal offense. Number nine, remove the category of prohibited from firearms ownership to allow for free exchange of property. The arbitrary nature of the prohibited class is a great affront to many ordinary citizens who happen to own these firearms. It is also a means of stealing their property. Many prohibited category firearms may not be passed on to heirs or readily sold at their fair market value. The restricted category is also of no valid purpose. If there is to be a so-called restricted category, then it must have broader reasons for which use can be made of these firearms. It also should allow combined ownership and use, and it must include at least hunting and self-defense along with the other categories that have been prescribed in the Criminal Code's Firearms Act. In addition, there needs to be an encouragement of support for recreational and competitive shooting sports to eliminate the negative stigma created by successive repressive firearms legislation. Finally, I just want to add that we need to make sure that any participation in United Nations treaties protects civilian firearms ownership and when we should be leaving any UN arrangement that harms civilian ownership of firearms and ammunition. For that reason, we want to see the repudiation of the Arms Trade Treaty. I hope these points have been helpful in explaining NFA positions on these important matters. I'm Sheldon Clare, President of Canada's National Firearms Association.